In today's episode, I'm going to be discussing Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power. I'm going to do these episodes over a series of parts. I may end up doing 48 parts to go over each and every law that he has. But I'm going to do it over a period of time, so definitely check back often. In today's episode, I want to talk about law number 29. And law number 29 is plan all the way to the end. Now, what I really like about this law is the fact that it reminds me of the Bible scripture that says, write the vision and make it plain. Now, I often hear a lot of people talk about this biblical scripture. They often just say the first part, but they don't talk about the scripture all the way to the end. And the scripture says, write the vision and make it plain. It talks about putting it on tablets and make it plain so that others can pick up and run with it. Now, what I gather from that particular scripture is that you want to make your vision so plain and so clear and so detailed oriented that if somebody were to come behind you and pick up your plans, they could follow it. It puts me in the mind of being an architect, right? When an architect designs a building and they create blueprints, the blueprints are literally the guide. And it takes someone step by step through the process of building a structure. So when you want to write the vision for your life, you want to think of blueprints, and you want to think of Robert Greene's law number 29, where he says, plan all the way to the end. And basically what he says, and I want to read this because he always starts his chapters with a little bit of verse in the beginning, and then he kind of breaks it down in the chapter. And if you don't have the book, you definitely want to pick it up. And it's Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power. And it says in the beginning that the ending is everything. Plan all the way to it, taking into account all the possible consequences, obstacles, and twists of fortune that may reverse your hard work and give the glory to others. By planning to the end, you will not be overwhelmed by circumstances, and you will know when to stop. Gently guide fortune and help determine the future by thinking far ahead. Now, what I like about what he says in this particular chapter is that when you plan all the way to the end, you kind of think about every possible scenario that could come into play. And when you plan all the way to the end, it helps you to avoid shiny object syndrome. One of the things that I've learned over the years is that many of us suffer from shiny object syndrome. And what I mean by that is we could be on one particular path for a long time, and then something comes along and it takes us off our path. We all from time to time have shiny object syndrome. But when you plan, what happens is it really allows you to alleviate that shiny object syndrome. And what I mean by that is it goes away because simply when you have a vision for your life and you know where you're going and you know what you want to do, there's nothing that can come along to take you off your path. There's nothing that could come along to knock you off your square. Nobody can come to you and present a new product, a new opportunity, and it will take you off your path. You must be crystal clear with regards to where you're going and what you're doing. And one of the things Robert Greene says in this particular chapter is that when you see several steps ahead and you plan all your moves all the way to the end, then you'll no longer be tempted by emotion or by the desire to improvise or change your plans. Basically, he says that your clarity will allow you to get rid of any anxiety or vagueness that you have. And a lot of times when you're not clear with regards to where you're going and what you're doing, then anybody can come along and knock you off your square and get you off your path. But when you're clear, you don't have any room to tolerate any type of deviation. And that's strong. That's really powerful, and you hear people often say, start with the end in mind. And that's what this law also calls into play for me, because it really allows you to understand that you're already where you want to be when you start with the end in mind. So for example, if you're in a network marketing company and your goal is to get to the top of the compensation plan, you're already there. You already see yourself. Every day you wake up seeing yourself with that accolade. Or if you're in affiliate marketing and you want to become the top affiliate in a specific program, you already see yourself there. Every day you wake up and you see your name on the leaderboard. Every day you wake up and you see yourself getting the accolades, getting the glory, getting the praise. Every day you see yourself doing that. And that's really, really important. It's important for you to see the end, for you to feel all of the emotions of the end. It's also important that you're crystal clear so that when the vultures come, and the vultures will come, you're able to really keep them off guard, because people will come, things will happen, ideas will pop up, all kinds of things will happen, and you will feel like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. But when you really plan all the way to the end, there leaves no room for question, no room for judgment, no room for anything, because you've already planned and you've already laid out any consequences, any crises that could come up. Anything that could come up, you've already thought about it. You've already put it into action. You've already created your contingency plans. So if this person comes up, or if this comes up, or if something comes up and I don't have time, or if this happens, or if anything else happens, you already know. You've already made plans for it. You've already done the risk analyses. You've already put the contingency plans in place, like I said earlier. So you already know. And when you know better, you can do better. And you can keep on a path all the way to the end. So the next time you set forth on a specific path, I want you to think about Robert Greene's law number 29. I want you to think about planning it out all the way to the end. And what I don't want you to do is, I don't want you to give up. If you get on the road and on the path and something happens, maybe you might have to pause for a minute, but don't give up. And I can give you a real solid example of that. A real solid example of that is me growing my Network for Women in Business page on Facebook. So now we're up to 100,000 followers on Facebook. And I remember when I first started out 10 years ago, I had maybe 50 followers at that time. And now 10 years later, I have 100,000. So my projection is that in another 10 years, I'll have 1 million. And I don't know what that's going to mean for me, what that's going to mean for my business. But I can tell you that I'm really excited about it, and I'm excited about the possibilities. Facebook now considers me to be an influencer. They've opened me up to multiple methods of monetizing that particular fan page, and I'm truly excited about that. I can monetize it from having events. I can monetize it from doing reels. There's just multiple ways I can monetize the page. I can monetize the page by connecting it to e-commerce. There's just a ton of things that I can do that I'm really excited about. And that's because I didn't quit. I saw it through all the way to the end. And the funny thing is that I'm nowhere near the end when it comes down to my Network for Women in Business. And in many ways, after 10 years, I feel like I'm at the beginning. Have I planned it out all the way to the end? No, I have not. But I have to tell you this, that I'm excited about the possibilities of the future and where we're going because of the fact that I didn't quit. So at the end of the day, I think that consistency is key. And even if you haven't planned out your business or whatever it is you want to do, whether it's getting more healthy, whether it's finding a loving relationship, whatever it is you want to do, if you haven't planned it out to the end, but yet you find yourself on that particular path, what you can do right now is you can start making those plans all the way to the end. No one said that just because you didn't do it at the beginning that you can't do it in the middle. So take this law for what it's worth, and it is a good one. And what I love about it is that it's so aligned with biblical scripture. It's so funny because, people would tell me all the time that there's nothing new under the sun. And every time I read something and I learn more about scripture, I always see a connection, and I always see that these people are right. And almost everything that we want to learn is already been taught in the Bible, which is so cool at the end of the day. But this particular law is a great one, and I encourage you, if you don't have the book, to pick it up. We're starting on law number 29, and it's an interesting one. But this is part 1 of a series where I am going to be breaking down some of my favorite quotes from Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power. This is one that if you implement it, I promise you, you won't regret it. But definitely make sure to come back to the podcast often. Make sure that you subscribe and leave a comment, and we definitely appreciate it. And we will see you on the next episode.